Good morning, everybody. The Constitution was written, but it had to be ratified. And that was quite a process and very dramatic. And it was on this date, May 29 in 1790, that the final colony ratified it. And that would be our neighbor, Rhode Island. When the Constitutional Convention met in Philadelphia in May of 1787, there were already lots of sticky political issues, and one had to do with the powers of the states. So Virginia plan favored the big states, the New Jersey plan favored the small states, and eventually they came up with a compromise. And while this is going on, the government, under the Articles of Confederation, passed the Northwest Ordinance, which created the Northwest Territory, which banned slavery. So that was one of the last things the old Congress did. So as everybody's talking about the new Constitution, there are key ideas that need to be figured out. Here are some of those: the role of the Congress, the power of the president, etc. And one of them, of course, is slavery. What do you do about that? And it's out of these debates we get really our first political parties. The Federalists, who favored a strong central government, led by Hamilton. The Democratic Republicans, or Anti-Federalists, led by Jefferson, favored a smaller government. That's crucial to the beginning of our country. So in 1787, Congress sent the Constitution to the states to be ratified. And this was going to be tricky. And the Federalists, who supported the Constitution, published a series of essays which we now know as the Federalist Papers, written by Madison, Hamilton, and John Jay. And the first state to actually ratify was Delaware. That's why its license plates say the first state, December 7, 1787. And a few states ratified soon after that, and then it came to Massachusetts. Here's the old State House in Boston. And it was here that the idea of a Bill of Rights came up, that somehow you needed some more specific wording about the rights of the states and the rights of the people. Now, up in Rhode Island, absolutely against the new Constitution. In fact, Rhode Island didn't even send people to the Constitutional Convention. So that's going to be a real burr under the saddle. All eyes are on Virginia. Here's a pamphlet that's against the new Constitution in Virginia. And the two leaders in Virginia are James Madison on the left and Patrick Henry on the right. Madison basically wrote the Constitution, will become president eventually. Patrick Henry we know from Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death, and he had a real strong following in Virginia. So all eyes are on Virginia as well as New York State. Now here I am, Dorothy and I were at Alexander Hamilton's house in the northern part of Manhattan, and Hamilton really worked hard to make sure New York State was for the Constitution. So in June of 1788, New Hampshire ratified. So now there were 9 states. It was official, but Virginia and New York hadn't voted yet. But how do you move from a confederation government to a constitutional government? So a special committee was set up to study that, and one of the first issues was, where's our capital going to be? So the temporary capital was at what's now called Federal Hall in southern Manhattan near Wall Street. Meanwhile, Maryland had given some land abutting the Potomac. That will become Washington, D.C. That's really a fascinating story all by itself. So we have our first election in February of 1789, not November. And Washington won. The way they did it was tidied up a little bit with the 12th Amendment later. And in 1791, a Bill of Rights was officially added to the Constitution. So the first 10 amendments. And this became a big deal as the states ratified, said we need the Bill of Rights. So here we have the list of the order in which the states ratified, and our event is the last one there, Rhode Island, by only 51%. That's another story. But we hear the phrase, we the people, and we like the idea, but I think we'd also agree that we the people don't always agree.